My name's Shahin. I'm with PureFish. We'll dive into a little more. We're a company that focuses on sustainable, all-natural, organic seafood from all over the world. What we do is we seek out and work with producers all over the world that work with sustainable fisheries or sustainable aquaculture. Since most of the presenters talked about wild-caught fisheries, I'll focus more on aquaculture and particularly sustainable aquaculture. So basically what it says here, if it's not the best, we will carry it. We will go out and seek out, whether it takes years, months, years, to find the best. Whether it is the best of one segment of aquaculture, and we look for a few specific items. Our criteria for aquaculture is, first and foremost, it has to be all natural. What all natural means is it's never touched with antibiotics, hormones, or growth promoters. So that means from the time it's grown to the egg all the way to the finished product. All the feed is free from GMO, genetically modified organisms, or land-based terrestrial animals. So we're not feeding fish chicken feet, we're not feeding them chicken feathers, we're not feeding them anything that comes from the land that they wouldn't eat in the wild. Everything that goes above is third-party tested, so we don't just tell you to take our word for it. We show you certifications that everything's been third-party tested and approved. We're going to talk about organic seafood. What we're going to talk about, particularly for our items and our Wild Isles organic salmon, is EU organic. Since the USDA hasn't set forth organic standards for seafood yet, and in 2005 they said it was going to be 2007, in 2007 they said 10, 10 they said 12, 12 they said 15. So we're kind of still waiting. So what we decided to do, since our farms are mostly located in Europe, we decided to go with EU, which is European Union organic certification, which is still to this day known as the top organic certification in the world. So basically what that means is all ingredients in the feed must be certified organic. When we talk about feed, that means everything that goes into it. So it doesn't just mean that actual product, whether it's wheat or anything else, it means that they go back, they test the soil, the EU, for about 20 years. Nothing can be grown that goes into the feed on the land base if pesticide or anything's been used in the last 20 years. And also what that means big thing for sustainable aquaculture is, where does the protein come from? Are we overfishing one species to feed another species? And what we look for, so for it to be certified organic, it means that the protein has to come from sustainably caught fish. And what we use in particular for all our feed is the protein comes from trimmings. So it means we're not catching one fish to feed another fish. We're actually using trimmings or byproduct of what would be trash at one point that was meant for human consumption. So by trash I don't mean bait fish or anything else. It was only fish that was destined for human consumption. So organic salmon aquaculture, which is our Wild Isles product, which is raised in the Shetland Islands. So we'll dive in deeper first into the organic so everyone can know what truly makes an organic salmon. So what they do is we've differentiated them to set standards that are just for salmon, and to kind of differentiate from regular conventionally raised salmon, similar to organic beef on how it's differentiated from feedlot beef. So everything's similar. We tend to use beef because it's the most well-known in the country. So basically what organic salmon aquaculture means is we're using less animals per cubic area, so it's opposed to a grass-fed, open-range cattle as opposed to a feedlot. More area for them to move around in naturally, and more care for the environmental footprint. So everything that these farms do is first and foremost for sustainability of the product and for the care of the fish, and what we find out that we get a better product in the end. So organic salmon standards. First and foremost, everything they talked about farm fish is talked about densities. We call it stocky densities. Conventional salmon tends to be about 65% water, 35% fish. Organic standards mandate that no more than 98% water to 2% fish. We'll dive in deeper for what our farms in particular do. Warm water means the salmon can swim naturally. They're tend to school like a wild salmon. Less sickness, so we always compromise it. If we fill this room, packed jam tight of people, we're sitting here, one person that walks in sick, sneezes, everyone in the room is doomed. But if it's a large enough room, one person on one side sneezes, nothing else is going to happen. Less waste is produced. The big problem with salmon farming, and it's looked bad upon to some farms, the waste that produced from the salmon, it comes down, too much stocking densities, that means too much fish in the pen. All the nitrates and everything in the feed just goes down to the seafloor and depletes the seafloor. We have a problem, which what happened in Chile back in 2008, 2009, when actually the environment said, we can't take this anymore, and it was a collapse. Fallowing. Fallowing is a term that we got from from land-based, from agriculture. Basically what it means is you're moving from one area to another, and when you're done harvesting one thing, you leave the area alone. So what it does is it lets the natural environment, comes mainly from corn, it lets it replete itself, everything. Similar we brought the idea to salmon farming. So what that means is after an area is harvested, it's left alone for a certain amount of period to make sure that the environment can heal itself, which it does in hours before we come back and decide to move that. It's following would have prevented a lot of the problems that happened in Chile. So organic salmon standards, biggest thing for farm salmon is where does it get its color? Let's talk about wild salmon. Wild salmon eat krill, plankton, shellfish, it all has the carotenoids, like carotene as in carrots, that dye their flesh. Just like if we eat too many carrots, our skin pigment starts turning a little bit orange. Same thing for the salmon. Conventional salmon uses synthetic pigment. It's synthesized, it's anistaxin. What EU organic and what all natural is, we use a yeast, and what they supplement that and also is a shrimp meal, which is actually the shrimp shell. It's a byproduct from another fishery as well, and gets ground up and put into the feed. So what happens is when you have a natural yeast in a shrimp, you're not adding a color. The salmon are metabolizing the color just like a wild salmon because they're eating something similar to what they would in the wild diet. So here is European Organic Certified Standards. In 2012, USDA declared that all products that bear EU organic are automatically USDA organic, except there was an asterisk, seafood, because no USDA standard had been set, so therefore it cannot convert over. But yet the EU does not reciprocate. So just because something is USDA organic standard does not mean that the EU will allow it. It all goes back to the standards. EU has much higher standards than the USDA, and so that's why they don't reciprocate. It mainly boils down to GMOs. So now we'll talk about our particular offerings that we're going to be offering from Fruge. Just as Lund described, we approach Fruge because they're known for their top quality and top restaurants in the area, such as yourself, and that's what our customer base are. We sell to distributors all across North America and Europe, and we like to position our product. It's going to be positioned by our distributor and into your hands in the best possible way. So what we're going to showcase first is our organic salmon. It's wild owls. This product is farmed in the Shetland Islands. The Shetland Islands is a small archipelago of islands in between Iceland and Norway. The reason we chose that is, once again, going back to a wild salmon. We're not trying to replace a wild salmon we're eating. What we're trying to do is supplement it and offer an alternative that's available year-round, fresh, and help take some of the pressure off the fisheries. So what we do is first is we look at the broadstock, which is where the salmon originated. We use a true Scottish Atlantic salmon. All farm salmon is now called Atlantic, but there is a Scottish Atlantic salmon that's where we get our broadstock. So if there are any problems with release or anything else, that salmon is true to that area. We're not bringing in a king salmon and farming it in New Zealand where it's never been. We're introducing the same salmon that's been there for thousands of years. Most farm salmon is raised in a loch or a bay. The reason they do that, in Norway they call them fjords, in Scotland they call them lochs, and here in America and Canada we call them bays. The reason they do that, it's easy to get to the fish, it's easy to feed them, logistically it's easy to harvest them. But as a wild salmon, what farms constantly do is look at a wild salmon. They don't spend most of their life in a bay, they spend most of their time in the open ocean. So that's why our farm decided to place our farms in the Shetland Islands in the open ocean. So what that does is means that they're swimming through 5 to 25 knot currents, transatlantic currents with no continental shelf. So which means that, for one, they're swimming, they're putting on more muscle, because they're constantly swimming in low stocking densities. We have no use for growth promoters, hormones, or antibiotics. It's a healthier fish. It's similar to putting us on a treadmill all day like an athlete. Stocking densities, our farms take it a step further. They go 99% water, 1% fish. Fallowing, we've talked about before. After every harvest, we leave the site fallow for 6 to 24 months, and we introduce what's called multi-trophic aquaculture. What that means is we work with other mussel farmers, scallop farmers, and kelp farmers, and they come into the area once we've left, and they farm those species there. What those species do is they filter water, and they clean the water. So what that does is when we come back into an area, the water's actually just as good or better than when we first arrived. Once again, how our shrimp, we looked at a wild salmon, how does it get its color? We decided to use the shrimp meal and the yeast. And what we found out after trials is that shrimp meal ended up giving our salmon a flavor, a sweet, buttery taste like a wild king salmon, because they're eating something similar to it as well. So energy, our farms are located in the Shetland Islands. The Shetland Islands, we'll show you pictures. Here they are, but no trees grow on the Shetland Islands. It's so windy. So we decided to use that, so all the power that comes from it, powers the farms and the plant, is all wind energy. So certifications, this is what really sets our salmon apart from everything else. There's a lot of salmons out there that talk a lot about marketing, a little bit about stocking densities here and there, but we go out and get third-party audits that show to prove to you guys that this is exactly what you're getting. Friend of the Sea is the first and foremost sustainable. They're based out of Switzerland. They certify that everything we say about our stocking densities, everything we say about the feed is all correct. Freedom Food is RSPCA. They make sure that we raise the salmon and slaughter it in a humane method, that we're not harming any sea creatures or any birds in the process as well too. And our biggest certification is our Organic Food Federation, our EU certified organic. So these are some pictures of the farms. As you can see, no trees in the middle of the ocean, open ocean farming. So let's go through this. You can see we end up getting a fish that's it looks just like a wild salmon. So it has streamlined shape from swimming in high currents. It has a mucus on it that covers it, shows it's a healthy. It has an iridescent color as well too. So like I said before, everything we do is first and foremost sustainability. What we found out is we get a better quality product in the end. So let's go into some of our point of sale material. As you can see here, we limit the fat content to about 25%. That's part of the organic certification. So you get a lot of beautiful marbling on the product. That wasn't picked through by 20 fish. That was actually one fish. We can cut open this fish and see the same thing. So when you actually cook up the product, it's going to retain its oil content in it. It's not going to ooze out like a classic Atlantic salmon. So you're going to get a much more moist product that will hold up to more rare cooking. Our next product is the Wild Owl's Ocean Trout. So if I start seeing any glazing over, I'll try to go a little bit faster. We'll start tossing some fish. But this is farmed in Scotland, very similar to the salmon, so we don't have to dive into everything else. This is a ocean trout, or it's called a steelhead. So we raise it we started by raising it off as a rainbow trout. We raise it in recirculation on land, and then we finish it off in the ocean. So what you end up getting is a beautiful fish. But instead of a common steelhead from the United States and Canada that's about 4 to 6 pounds, we end up with a fish that's 3 to 5 kilos, which is about 7 to 13 pounds. So there's one up here, great for sashimi. All of our products are sashimi quality as well too. We also have parasite-free certification, which means that you guys do not have to freeze our product before you serve it as sashimi. Just kind of dives into it, sashimi quality, great yield on this product, small head, big belly, so you can get about a 72% yield on it. Next product is our Branzino. It's a Mediterranean sea bass. This is quite different from everything else. This is the first and foremost most land-based aquaculture. So what it is from start to finish, it's all raised inland in recirculation tanks. So
Question.
First, go ahead.
So a lot of the Bronzino that we get is not gutted, but
Correct.
earlier tonight we heard how you should gut fish. So
That's
explain
correct.
to me, why that is.
Because The way it started, so as many things, is once President's Incentive was started by one farm, so they decided the Greeks that originated the farming of the Bronzino did not want to gut it. They send it whole. They sell it mostly whole in Europe because this is a Mediterranean fish. Was until a few years was mainly considered an ethnic fish. It was eaten more by Greeks and Italians in the United States. So it was a whole fish. They preferred a whole round form. So that's how it's sold. Now the farms like it because they don't have to do any further processing. So they're kind of sticking to their guns there.
Actually, the sea basses, when you harvest them, they tend to throw their gut contents out. And if you actually ship them fresh without gutting them, you end up with a longer shelf life. That's the reason.
Oh, interesting.
Sorry, commercial fishery scientist back on.
Okay.
That's the reason. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
So what this farm does is first of its kind. It's in Wales in the UK. So it's a Mediterranean sea bass that's farmed in Wales. The reason is they use an old quarry. It's a land-based recirculation. So what they do is they bring in water from the Irish Sea. It's ozone. I don't know if everyone's familiar with ozone. It's basically a product that's a way of sanitizing without any chemicals or anything whatsoever. So this is the product here. What they do is, for more to explain it, there's a short little video on it that explains it a little bit better.
A feeding time for the fish on a huge scale. These Mediterranean sea bass are being farmed on Anglesey, and business is extremely good. Exactly the sort of company the Welsh Government wants to help promote. As well as the UK, these fish are being sold as far afield as California. Now, at any one time, around 2 million fish are being farmed here using technology that's not being used anywhere else. So this fish farm is a world leader and is based here in Wales.
What's special about this farm is it's globally unique. It is the first marine research aquaculture farm of its kind in the world, which means we can grow fish on the shore for the first time, marine fish, without affecting the environment in any way, shape or form.
And it seems demand is growing for this sort of product. This visiting group representing a major British seafood supplier.
The demand from customers is growing for us. We need more and more of fish from the site. There's more customers. The more the customers understand the provenance and the difference, the key difference between this sea bass and other sea bass, means that they want more.
So that talks a little bit briefly, shows you kind of what the recirculation is or anything else. This product, just like everything else, never touched with any antibiotics, never touched with any hormones. Very different than the Greek Mediterranean and Turkish Mediterranean sea basses currently out there. You can get a much cleaner flavor because they do absorb a lot of nutrients through their skin. Since we control all aspects of the farming, all the water quality, you tend up getting a much cleaner fish in the end. This is from the same farms. They just started up with production of Dover sole. It's in Spain, same technology, all natural as the Anglesey aquaculture sea bass just out of Spain. We're getting a Dover sole that's fresh, whole, that we can bring in. And another added benefit from land-based farming is a Turkish or a Greek bass. It takes about 4 days to get from harvest to the United States. Because we are indoors, we're able to pack directly right after they come out of water. We're able to get the product here within 48 hours. So that means we do direct shipments from Fruge, from our farms in Europe to Fruge directly. So we're able to take away about 3 days of transit time doing that. So that means that you guys are going to see fish that's about 3 to 4 days, fresh. So this is the same farm. We can go into it a little more. Friends of the Sea certified, just like our other products. Sustainably farmed and land-based. This is a product in Spain. We're actually able to bring in this product and offer it to the Fruge customers because we're bringing it in with other shipments from the same area, about even cheaper than what wild Dover sole from Holland is. It's a phenomenal product. Once again, same thing, sushi grade. I don't know if anyone's eating Dover sole sushi, but it is. You could do it. Another thing is a POS material. What we do is we focus a lot on education, a lot about showcasing our products, why they're different, the certifications, everything about them. It's a lot of information, but we provide point of sale material for everything. We have server cards that are great for servers to have inside their pockets, and little cheat sheets for retail. We use every one of our fish is gill tagged. Our salmon is even individually gill tagged. They have QR codes actually on the product, so you can scan it, go to the website, learn more. So everything that we do is about really differentiating our product from the mass product out there, very similar to, once again, to beef. So, talking again about direct shipments, and then also Fruge will be our exclusive distributor in Teclis, Oklahoma. So this product you can only get through Fruge, and it's going to be available starting in the next week or so. Any questions?
You mentioned the waste collection. If it's an open environment, it's just incorporated in the natural environment.
Correct.
But I am all about farm raised, especially containment, remote farm raised. What's the whole concept around it? Dispelling the
waste.
Well, there's all kinds of pressure put on us about, well, they come from contaminated, terrible water. The waste is a ecological, pariah. What's the whole deal about collecting the waste and how it's used as fertilizer?
It's the best way to explain it, because it's with seafood it's really hard, especially the I hate to use the term bad, the bad farms that are out there that are stocking densities. The problem is when you see when a person sees like a cattle feedlot or something else,
Right.
you can see the impact of the environment. The ocean still looks blue, even though underneath it's not doing so well like Chile. The main difference is stocking densities. So we look at stocking densities and current. The more fish you have in an area, that means the more waste is produced. The more waste is produced, it's collected on the bottom floor. That's why we chose the Shetland Islands. It all begins with where you're farming them. We chose the Shetland Islands. There is no continental shelf. We're not in a bay. So that means we're dealing with depths of 400, 400 meters. So that means that it can never reach the floor, and because of the low stocking densities and the high currents, it's washing it away. It's not a perfect way, but it's as close to it as we've got. And actually, we do in the Shetland Islands where we are, it's an ecological reserve.
Is there a political lobby or any kind of force behind the whole dispelling the idea that farm is bad? If it comes from some muddy pond somewhere, which obviously is not the case.
This is the biggest problem. Yeah, it's the biggest problem that we're having is education. It's just like any other farming. There's good farming and there's bad farming. So what we're trying to do, and the main point of our farms, is showcase what sustainable farming does, what you can do, how you can have little or no impact on the environment, and provide a phenomenal product that's available year-round. Like I said before, we're not trying to replace wild, we're trying to augment it and offer something that helps taking pressures off it as well too. But also, salmon are being tried, has been tried in a land-based recirculation system, but it's an open water, long-distance swimming fish. It's not yet isn't feasible on a large mass scale. In Washington, they've done it, but you end up getting a small trout-sized coho. Nothing that, we keep asking, especially here, we're in Texas, bigger. So that's how the USA market is. But the great thing about land-based aquaculture, all the feces and all the waste is collected from the fish in the land-based circulation. We actually condense, solidify, and sell it off as organic fertilizer to local farmers. So it's a zero waste system.
Anybody else? Shahin, what's the omega-3 fat content on your salmon in a 3.5 ounce serving?
I'll have to get with our biologist and get you that exact number. If I gave it to you right now, I'd be wrong. But we do periodic testing every 6 months on omegas and on PCCBs, and we used to do a Safe Harbor. I don't know if everyone's familiar with it. It's a company that used to do mercury testing. Our organic salmon came back as the lowest PCCBs and mercury levels out of any fish they've ever tested. So, and it's also, that comes back to where we chose to farm them, we controlled them, where they swim, what they're eating, everything else as well too. get let off that easy? Yeah.
We got any questions back here by any chance?
But everything that, like we tell everyone else, everything that we do on the sustainability standpoint, everything that we have written down here on paper and everything, it's all fantastic. But where all these products really shine and what we push on these farms and these fisheries is it has to taste better. If it doesn't taste better, then what's the point? So, or at least